Welcome, Age of Vintage Society. Hattie McDaniel was the African-American to win an Academy Award, and that's not even the most interesting thing about her. McDaniel was a radio and film star and pioneer whose legacy has impacted the lives of black actors and others alike. How Hattie McDaniel became the most lovable face in Hollywood. Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Age of Vintage channel. Hattie McDaniel had one of the most famous roles ever by a black actor or actress when she played Mammy in Gone with the Wind, and was the first black actress-actor to win a coveted Academy Award Oscar. She was also the first black woman to sing on radio in the United States. The list of Gone with the Wind cast members simply had to include the lovable Mammy, played by the black actress, who was born for the part. She was relegated to roles as a maid by whites and rejected by blacks, who did not understand that she was conforming to the stereotype to which Hollywood had reduced her race. She died without a dollar, and her Oscar was blown away. But she was always true to herself, and her best phrase was not written by a screenwriter, but by herself. "I'd rather play a maid for $700 than be one for $7. Her name was Hattie McDaniel, and her lights and shadows will be forever linked to the history of cinema. McDaniel was born on June 10, 1893 in Wichita, Kansas, with some sources listing her year of birth as 1895. She was her parents' 13th child. Her father Henry was a Civil War veteran who suffered greatly from war injuries and had a difficult time with manual labour. Her mother, Susan Hulbert, was a domestic worker. She spent the first few years of her childhood in Kansas, the daughter of former slaves, hoping to make a better place for their family. Coming here to Kansas to set up and have life the way they wanted to have it, rather than what somebody else prescribed for them. This was a mindset that carried on to McDaniel, even after her family moved to Colorado. She made a name for herself as a writer and actress who did not shy away from the spotlight. More fond of following the rhythm of the gospel that her mother played in church than of books, she soon took to the stage to collaborate in the extremely poor family finances. She was not sure what her future would be, but she did know that she did not want to follow the path of servitude to which the women of her race seemed doomed. She preferred to form together with two of her brothers a vaudeville group in which her comic vision did not take long to stand out. She was radical in many ways. She performed with her face painted white, something no other woman did back then. In 1901, McDaniel and her family moved to Denver, Colorado. There she attended the 24th Street Elementary School, where she was one of only 2 black students in her class. Her natural flair for singing, at school and in her home, was apparent early on, and gained her popularity among her classmates. While at Denver East High School, McDaniel started professionally singing, dancing, and performing skits in shows as part of the Mighty Minstrels. Before she made it, she had to take odd jobs to make ends meet. The jobs that she took included working as a maid and laundress. She was so determined to make her own way that she dropped out of high school before her 18th birthday. She joined her brother's travelling carnival. They went around the American Midwest and made very little money. In 1911 she married pianist Howard Hickman and went on to organise an all-women's minstrel show. Hickman passed on about 4 years later, and it would be a while before McDaniel found love again. In the 1920s she worked with Professor George Morrison's orchestra and toured with his and other vaudeville troupes for several years. By mid-decade she was invited to perform on Denver's KOA radio station. Following her radio performance, McDaniel continued to work the vaudeville circuit and established herself as a blues artist, writing her own work. When projects weren't coming in, she took on attendant work to supplement her income. Much to her relief, in 1929 she landed a steady gig as a vocalist of Sam Pick's Suburban Inn in Milwaukee. A year or so later, McDaniel's brother Sam and his sister Etta convinced her to move to Los Angeles, where they had managed to procure minor movie roles for themselves. Sam was also a regular on KNX radio show called The Optimistic Donuts. Not long after arriving in LA, McDaniel had a chance to appear on her brother's program. She was a quick hit with listeners and was dubbed Hi-Hat Hattie for donning formal wear during her first KNX performance. In 1931 she scored her first small film role as an extra in a Hollywood musical. Then in 1932 she was featured as a housekeeper in the Golden West. She continued to land parts here and there, but as roles for black actors were hard to come by, she was again forced to take odd jobs to make ends meet. I landed there broken. Someone told me that Sam Pick's Suburban Inn Hotel was looking for a ladies' room attendant. I ran out and got the job. One night when all the performers had left, the manager asked for a volunteer to come on stage. I asked the musicians for a song and began to sing. I did not work in the bathrooms again. For 2 years I starred in the local show. She landed a major on-screen role in 1934 singing a duet with Will Rogers in John Ford's Judge Priest. The following year she was awarded the role of Mum Beck, starring opposite Shirley Temple and Lionel Barrymore in The Little Colonel. The part gained McDaniel the attention of Hollywood directors and was followed by a steady stream of offers, including the part of Queenie in the 1936 film adaptation of Showboat with Irene Dunne. Black actors played irrelevant and often uncredited roles. They were chauffeurs, waiters, mobs, and especially servants. Hattie had fled the service in real life, but she couldn't do it on screen. It did not take long to stand out. In 1934, director John Ford caught her eye and fostered her sassy and sarcastic style. She appeared in dozens of movies with some of Hollywood's hottest stars, and by squeezing every minute on screen she became one of the most familiar faces in the country. She was fulfilling an unlikely dream for the daughter of a slave. Hattie McDaniel might be one of the most prolific film stars of all time, and we'll never know. Over the course of her tremendous career, it is estimated that McDaniel appeared in over 300 films. That would make for an impressive CV, if she'd been treated fairly. She only received credit for 83 of the films in which she appeared. During World War II, McDaniel helped entertain American troops and promoted the sale of war bonds, but she soon found the film offers to be drying up. She responded by making a strategic return to radio, taking over the starring role on CBS Radio's The Beulah Show in 1947. While many people wanted and tried to drag Hattie McDaniel into race politics, McDaniel believed she was an entertainer first. When someone approached her to give out placards in support of Richard Nixon, she declined. As she said, "Beulah is everybody's friend," a reference to one of her famous roles. Her career-defining role was as Mammy in Gone with the Wind, but it's a role that she nearly never got. The casting for Mammy was highly competitive, so competitive in fact that then First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt wrote to Gone with the Wind's producer, David O. Selznick, to have her own real-life maid cast in the iconic role. So how did McDaniel beat out the competition? Getting a starring role in a major Hollywood production requires years of work, a lot of dumb luck, and the right look. Hattie McDaniel must have known this all too well when she went into audition for the role. To stand out from the competition, McDaniel showed up to her audition in full, authentic maid's uniform. David O. Selznick cast McDaniel in the role of Mammy even though she did not embody the values that were supposed to be in a devoted maid. She was sarcastic, haughty, and the only one who dared to stop the indomitable Scarlett, played by Vivian Leigh. Of course it was framed with that cliché of a servant who has no life apart from his master. You can imagine how excited Hattie McDaniel must have been to attend the premiere of Gone with the Wind, until she received some disturbing news. She was told that she was not allowed to attend the premiere of the biggest film of her career because of segregation laws. That kind of discrimination didn't sit well with everyone, but the Hollywood that McDaniel encountered was not a field of roses for blacks. The Hays Code, a system of self-regulation of the studios to restore the good image of Hollywood after the barrage of scandals of the 1920s, prohibited interracial romances and did not allow blacks to access violent roles. Even amongst Hollywood icons, few people compare to Clark Gable, the King of Hollywood, was very good friends with her. When Gable learned that she would not be allowed to attend the premiere of the biggest film of all time, he was utterly furious. Gable threatened to boycott the premiere himself. McDaniel, however, managed to convince Gable to attend anyway. That kind of humility was patently Hattie. She may not have been allowed to attend the Atlanta premiere, but that didn't take the wind out of her sails. She received overwhelmingly positive reviews from film critics, and she seized on the opportunity. McDaniel brought clippings of the reviews to producer David O. Selznick to convince him to put her up for Academy Award consideration. The Academy Awards have had a long road to travel on their path to inclusion, and there's still some road yet to travel. But Hattie took the first step. It was at the 12th Annual Academy Awards that McDaniel would win the Oscar for Best Actress in a Supporting Role, and she was the first person of colour to receive that honour. Of all that I can write about Hattie McDaniel, you should really take her own words. McDaniel delivered one of the greatest acceptance speeches in Academy history. Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, fellow members of the motion picture industry and honoured guests. This is one of the happiest moments of my life, and I want to thank each one of you who had a part in selecting me for one of their awards, for your kindness. It has made me feel very, very humble, and I shall always hold it as a beacon for anything that I may be able to do in the future. I sincerely hope I shall always be a credit to my race and to the motion picture industry. My heart is too full to tell you just how I feel, and may I say thank you, and God bless you. Despite facing discrimination throughout her career, she was paid quite handsomely for her film and radio appearances. At the time of her passing then, McDaniel must have amassed quite the fortune, right? Unfortunately not. McDaniel's estate was only worth $10,000 when she passed, and she owed about $11,000 in taxes. McDaniel was the first black Oscar winner for her role as Mammy in Gone with the Wind. It was a moment for the history books, and also for the next generation of black actors and actresses, a light of hope to follow their dreams. It would be 51 more years until the next African-American woman won an acting Oscar. Hattie McDaniel's claim to fame has inspired a generation of African-Americans from coast to coast to follow their dreams. Now work is being done to ensure her legacy is not forgotten. In 1952, McDaniel passed away from breast cancer. Audiences today know McDaniel for her role in Gone with the Wind, but way back in the early 1900s, McDaniel was equally known for her immense radio talents, and her contributions to radio were no less spectacular than her contributions to film. Sources vary, but it's quite possible that McDaniel was the first black person in the United States to ever sing across the airwaves. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you are new here, and if you want to support my work, please visit my Patreon page. Now it is your turn. What do you think about the life and legacy of Hattie McDaniel?